Hi, I'm Harish Sakrin, and for this vlog, I talked to my partner Hai Yuhan, who's from China. And in our last conversation, I got a chance to sit down with him again and talk to him. And this time, I got to learn a little bit more about why he's necessarily, at Michigan State, attending college, being like majoring as an engineer. What the reasons for that? What's like like basically essentially the cultural reasons he's like values education for, why he's here for those reasons, and basically what motivates him essentially. And that's basically the topics of this video. And I dug in a little bit more into that and got a chance to learn a lot more about him in this one. So to start with, one of the first things I asked Hayu was essentially like what, like, I mean, we discussed about this before and like in the past vlog about like how culture plays a big part in his education. And he told me that like in China, the population being so large, uh, education is valued more because not everyone has an opportunity to get a job. And at the same time, him coming from a middle class family, it's not like there's, like for him, it's important to take care of his family and it's important to take care of himself. And like to do that, you need the proper education to get you the proper job. And at the same time, China being such a large population, not everyone's going to get a spot in college. It's very competitive, and like truly the top students are the ones that necessarily get that opportunity to like go to college, receive a degree, get basically sharpen their skills and whatever they're gonna like do for the rest of their lives, and then just end up working there. But like, not everyone gets that opportunity when the population's over 1 billion in China. So it's important. Education is very important, and people value that, and people take it seriously. And for him to get the opportunity to come to America and as an international student get like an education from an American university is a big deal for him because not everyone in China gets that. And at the top of that, it adds a lot of value to him, and he has an opportunity to work here where the obviously the currency level or the amount of money he'd make here was far fetched and far more than he would make in China, which is a big deal for him and a big deal for his family and friends, and just a cultural aspect in general. And another thing too is like the difference between our culture in terms of education and their culture in terms of education. Like I've said before, is like the lack of seriousness and the lack of you know not necessarily a lack of, but like overall general consensus. If you were to take like a survey with the population in America, the seriousness and like the degree of which people take education is a little bit far less important to them compared to those in China, where everyone values education equally and considers education very important and very valuable. And those are like the number one things I learned from Hayu, that education was basically the key to success. And based off his culture basically creates the motivations that he has, and that's one of the other aspects about this video and this vlog is to understand what motivates him. And logically speaking, culture motivates him, and like it motivates him in like multiple ways that we talked about in class. For instance, if you talk about extrinsic motivation, like the outside factors, like his family, his friends, like the social life in general, like they expect you to do well in school, because if you don't do well in school, you look like you kind of look like, and what he says, like you look like a bum, like you look like you can't handle education, you don't value education well, you're not going to be well off, and people misvalue you, and people take you lightly, and it's very hard for you to excel in China. And that's one of the motivating factors, his family and his future. And then another one also, and with extrinsic motivation, introjection kind of comes into play, because the outside factors that influence him to do those types of stuff, like if he doesn't get a good education, like, and he can't get a job, and him not being able to get a job, he can't support himself, and he can't support a family of his own or the family he has right now. So those, like it's just I mean, and that applies to everyone, that applies to myself as well. If I wasn't able to pursue a degree or like graduate, I wouldn't be able to get a job I desired, and wouldn't be able to get the pay I desire, and possibly do the things I want to in the near future. So that plays a big role. It's also important that he has a intrinsic, and he also has a little bit of intrinsic motivation as well. And it's important for everyone to have that intrinsic motivation, because if you're, and basically like we've discussed in class, it's like the motivation for why you're doing it. You're doing it because you want to do it necessarily. You enjoy the activity itself. Like you, like for instance, like I'd like for anyone, like take a hobby, I like playing basketball. I don't do it because like, like, oh, because it's a good cardio, like it's a cardio exercise, like I lose weight from it. I do it because I enjoy it itself. Like I'm not doing it just because, oh, it's a workout mechanism. I want to do it because I enjoy the sport. I like the value of sport and working with the team in general, so I play it. And same goes for the like majors and education we pursue as well. Like we study what we want to study because it's going to be our future, it's going to be our life. We want to make a difference in the world in some way. And for Hayu, it's engineering, and because he wants to be able to create new things and like help the environment, help the world, and help the future and the people in general to like advance towards better things and make the world easier for everyone, regardless of like their economic status, regardless of where they live. That's the type of that's the future, and that's the goals and aspirations he has as an engineer, which is a great intrinsic motivation. And for me, I want to work in finance, and right now, for me at least, my intrinsic motivation is just my own personal benefit. I want to do this because I want to be well off in terms of the money aspect. I'm not really necessarily looking at like I want to help people out and eventually in the near future, but like at the moment, I'm looking more for personal goals and personal gain. So that's more of my intrinsic motivation towards um, my education and what I'm pursuing. So that's basically how like the motivation factors fall into play, and like an overall sum, like just an overall general aspect of everything. Me and Hayu, even though I was born here, we're kind of from the same region of I mean, I was born in India, but I was primarily raised here, so we're from the same regions, and we're from the same cultural like society, where Indians and Chinese almost have the same idea for valuing education, and how education is important, how the like also from a population as India like has more than a billion, it's important to secure a job and secure like an education that can get you that job. So uh, you know, culture plays a big role in our education, and our the way we take education seriously and our aspiration for education is the reason why our motivations are such forth. Our motivations are similar in terms of the extrinsic motivation, intrinsic motivation, and like the things that fall under it. And like we basically, I see a lot of similarities, and at the same time I see a lot of differences because he has a lot more riding on the line compared to me, because simply because I grew up here, and just like I have other opportunities and I have other people to help me out compared to him, where he's not necessarily on his own, but he doesn't have much. It's him and the international students he's with, so it's important that he does well and succeeds. And I was glad I got a chance to talk to him about this, and I gave him some tips of advice on like how to excel, like like, and like at the same time like what to do to like get more involved, and like like stuff that like stuff that would help him in like the near future, just in general, because uh, I was once an engineer. I switched my major to finance, so like I was able to help him out with a lot of stuff that he can one day use as he progresses through his classes and stuff. But I mean, other than that, it was a great talk. I got to learn a lot more about him, and I was able to kind of connect the stuff we learned in class with him and through our conversation. So it was a lot of fun, and I hope to talk to him more about stuff in our next vlogs and in my essay overall. So other than that, that was it.